Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Anderson Optimization and PlantPredict. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. My name is Andrew DeSmit. I am the Senior Manager for Global Product Marketing at First Solar, and I've been with the company about 2 years. In today's live webinar, we will demonstrate how Anderson Optimization and PlantPredict can be used in tandem by renewable developers to go from early stage market analysis all the way through array layout design and generation assessments in just minutes to create an efficient project pipeline that decreases costs and significantly increases project opportunities and revenue. We'll also observe a live demo of using Anderson Optimization to identify map and lease quality sites, learn how PlantPredict can quickly and easily lay out a PV array design and accurately model energy output potential, and discover how the combination of these two software solutions can provide a significant competitive advantage. And then towards the end, we'll engage in a brief Q&A session. If you do have any questions or issues, please submit them using the chat or questions feature of the GoToWebinar platform. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll send out a link to that recording to all attendees afterwards. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our first presenter, Jake Anderson, founder and head of business at Anderson Optimization, who will guide us through the first portion of our demonstration.
Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. As Andy mentioned, I am Jake Anderson. I'm one of the co-founders and head of business for Anderson Optimization. To give you a little background before we get started, I actually come from a non-energy corporate finance Fortune 500 background prior to founding Anderson. In the summer of 2016, teamed up with my cousin to create Anderson Optimization to deliver his technical skill sets in the power system modeling and optimization research community to the energy industry. We wanted to create a company to really help usher in the new renewable energy future and create a platform to help do that. And that's really where Anderson was, and we went to market here in the summer of 2018 and have been rapidly scaling ever since. We're now working with a wide variety of developers, both large and small, including many of the largest developers in the US and abroad as well. To give you a little bit of background about what Anderson Optimization is and what we do, is we basically created a software platform that helps to automate the entire early stage land siting process for renewable developers. Basically, our platform helps you developers go from having a general area of interest in mind all the way down to having a short list of quality opportunities with all necessary outputs, including constraint maps, buildable area calculations, contact reports, so that you can quickly move into your next phase processes, even regardless of your technical background. We've quickly become the leader in this space over the past 2 years. As I mentioned, we're working with many, if not most, of the biggest developers in the industry. And there's really two key components of this platform. The first is a data component. We really come out of the box with 3 key pillars of data: grid infrastructure for your points of interest, parcel data, so you get your property boundaries as well as your ownership information. And then we have a full-scale GIS platform built in. We incorporate about 50 to 60 different GIS layers so that you can simply use them without any manual uploading, downloading, or use. As far as customization, that is one of the big benefits we provide as it relates to data. Most other tools in this space are somewhat of a black box, where what they come with is what you get. We know that most developers have created or acquired a lot of their own data, so we want to make sure you don't lose that in our platform. We will absolutely integrate that, because where we really provide value is in actual workflow automation. Most tools in this space are just basically raw GIS data providers. Whereas what we've done is we basically created a platform that mimics developers' workflows in these processes, and then we add a lot of novel automation to it. That's what you'll see in the demo, but before we get there, I want to introduce Dave to tell you a little bit about PlantPredict before we get into the demo.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks especially for teaming up with us to do this co-demonstration. Really appreciate it. Jake and I have been friends for a few years now. I'm excited about what Anderson Optimization has been doing. Their role they're playing in the industry, I think, is really important. So really grateful to have Jake on this webinar with us. So Jake, as you were saying, I'm Dave Spieldenner. I'm the product manager for PlantPredict. Similar to Jake, I come with some Fortune 500 experience as well. I've been in the world of software development and IT for over 22 years. 14 of those years have been with First Solar. I started with First Solar when it was just a small startup. My career with First Solar has spanned through building the manufacturing execution system that still runs our factories today, all the way through. I was the IT manager for our construction division for 9 years. Well, actually, it was about 8 years. And that was when I really developed a passion for solar utility scale solar development. And we started building software to try to streamline that process, which led me to being the product manager for PlantPredict, which PlantPredict is a product that First Solar has been building now for like 9 years, almost mirrors my experience on the EPC side. But I took over the product manager role a little over a year ago. And that's been great because it allows me to really push forward my passion for this renewable energy revolution, and specifically the role that software is going to play in it. And that's why I'm excited about this demo, because I really love what Anderson Optimization and PlantPredict, how we really streamline the prospecting process. So Jake, why don't you go to the next slide? And so here's our 5 key differentiators. So PlantPredict, our motto is solar performance modeling made simple. We truly want to democratize solar performance modeling. That's our goal. We try to offer you a easy to use user interface. In fact, we've invested a lot of money and time into our UI UX design, and we feel that it is a easier way. I mean, we all know what the traditional tools are like when it comes to doing solar simulations, and they're just not easy to use. We've tried to create a very easy to use tool, and that leads into speed. So we try to make the process faster. When we've done competitive scenarios where we do time studies between traditional methods and PlantPredict, we find that you can get to the same point in about a quarter of the time. So we're 75% faster than competing software. We also know that a power plant is not built on an energy prediction alone. So we've been building out capabilities that span the entire software or solar development process. So layouts, we just rolled out a bill of material. We're going to be rolling out cost estimating, financial modeling. So we want to have a very capable solution around that development process. Also, we believe that the future of software is built in the cloud. And so we've got a very secure and convenient cloud-based platform, very similar to Anderson Optimization. And we feel like this brings a lot of value. You no longer have to worry about emailing files back and forth with your colleagues, or heaven forbid, a hard drive crash that takes the project you've been working on and just flushes it down the toilet. You don't have to worry about that with PlantPredict. Your data is safe, secure in the cloud, and always available no matter what the platform is. If you're a Mac user or a Windows user, it doesn't matter. All you need is a browser. All right, and last but definitely not least is it's got to be accurate, it's got to be bankable. We've invested a lot of money in independent studies to try to make sure that what we are putting forth is both accurate and bankable. In fact, PlantPredict has been used in over 1 gigawatt of financing to date. It's used in over 10 gigawatts worth of O&M agreements for monitoring, for as-built modeling and stuff like that. Those are the things that I think make me confident that I can tell you as a customer that you're getting an accurate and a bankable energy prediction from the tool. All right. So the reason why we're doing this team up with Anderson Optimization is because we feel like they're leaders in this world of prospecting, and we feel that we're leaders in the world of the future of solar utility scale solar modeling and energy predictions. And so we thought it was just a great opportunity to come together and show everybody how the future of solar prospecting can look like. You know, Jake and I know it, well, we've seen it, we've seen each other's tools, but we wanted to make sure that the whole rest of the industry can see it. And so I'm just super excited about being able to show this to you all today. All right, go ahead and let's set the stage. So for today's demo, we're going to be role playing. Jake and I are going to be solar developers in the Minnesota market, anticipating an RFP for somewhere around 100 megawatts worth of solar. We've done a congestion study. So we've looked at what the grid congestion is, and it's told us that if we focus on the COM-free Minnesota area, that's going to be a place where we can actually get our energy onto the grid in this area. We can support somewhere between 25 and 50 megawatts, so that's what we're going to be looking for. And ultimately, we just want to figure out which site can produce the most energy. And so between Anderson Optimization and PlantPredict, we're going to be able to do all of this for you in the time that we have set aside for this demo. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Andy, and he is going to ask our first poll question.
Thanks, David. refer to your screen. If you're not an Anderson optimization user already, how do you currently manage your siting process? We'll give everyone a few moments to click on the appropriate answer on their screen. And here's the results. All right, I'll pass it back over to Jake.
Jake, you might be muted, my friend.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Can you guys still see my screen okay? And did that pass back all right?
We can, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So for that poll question, I'm not sure if it was just on my end, but it came through as just showing 0% across the board. So apologies if...
No, it looked like, I'll just fill in. So it looked like ArcGIS was roughly 62%,
okay.
Which I don't think is a surprise.
Yep,
So,
that sounds about right and makes complete sense. And, to that end, basically what we've seen and, a big reason that we created this platform is when you really look at tools like a GIS or any of these other kind of one-off GIS tools, what they're really good at is basically just storing data and showing that data. But you as a developer, you are still generally then left with actually doing the analysis of saying, okay, well, I have to overlay all these data sets. I have to then trim and trace my parcel boundaries to figure out which of these sites are quality. And we basically wanted to add a lot of time savings to that. Because with those traditional tools, even once you have that data, there is still a lot of work that goes into the process. And we basically built a platform that automates all of that work. So as Dave mentioned, we're going to really walk through that Minnesota project example that he outlined in the slides. So what we'll do today is we're going to create a project. And what you'll see is we have three typical flows. Our substation and transmission projects are really your greenfielding exercises. So I want to find parcels that are within a certain radius of a sub. I want to find parcels that intersect a line. But we also have this land project approach. We often know that developers have opportunities where maybe a landowner says, hey, I have 400 acres. I want to see if it's suitable for solar. And our platform will also allow you to automatically evaluate those. But today, since we're doing a greenfielding project, I will do a substation project. And I'm just going to go ahead and I will call this Comfrey, Minnesota. We could also have a description. So I could say, solid capacity, to make sure that I reminded myself that our congestion study said there was capacity in the area. We now have visualized out all of the substations in Minnesota, but I want to really target that Comfrey area. So I just come to my address section, I type in Comfrey, Minnesota, and then what's going to happen is our system will bring us right to that area. And in these pinkish icons, I can see that we have about 3 different substations here to target. So all I have to do in our system is I simply click, I then select the substation. You'll see that gets added to my selected list down below. But since I don't know exactly which of these to target, I'm going to just target all 3 areas at once. So I'll just click on this sub. Once again, I just hit select. But we also have a tool where you can use this polygon select tool to grab an entire area. But I'm just really going to focus on these 3 substations today. We then hit next and create, and then our platform will automatically save this project. One of the big benefits here, so we've now created this project, and a big benefit, as Dave mentioned, is this is cloud-based. So for you ArcGIS users, you're never going to have to worry about your system crashing after you've done 2 hours of work and you forgot to hit file save. Our system automatically tracks all that work in real time, and it's completely shareable across your entire team. There's no more having to deal with version 1 shapefile, version 1 with additional wetlands, version 1 with 2 landowners. Everything is stored, so it really adds a lot of efficiency and team sharing to your process. But now we're at a point we want to round out this project. So let's say I want to find the transmission lines in the area. I just come in, I go to asset search, and let's say I want to see all the transmission lines within, say, 4 miles of these substations. I then just hit run, and our system will go through and pull in all the transmission lines in the area. We could also do the same thing for substations or power plants, but what I will do is go ahead and skip to the parcel section. Right here you can see we've pulled in all of those 69 kV lines, and we're ready to look for some parcels. So from here, I just come to parcel search, and let's say that I want to find all of the parcels that are within 1 mile of each of these subs, because obviously we need to be close to make sure that our costs are viable, and at least 150 acres, so that we can really support that kind of 25-ish megawatt project we were looking for. We then hit get count, and our system will tell us how many parcels actually meet that criteria. And it appears that there are 17. So then we just hit run and our system will go through and pull in all of those parcels to our project automatically. You can see we now have all of our parcel boundaries, and we also have all of that contact information down below. So metrics such as your mailing addresses, site address information, property ID numbers, school districts, market values, and really all of that information you would need to really move into your marketing and land acquisition campaigns. But before we get that, we're now at a point where, okay, well, we have all of these parcels, but now we need to figure out which of these is the best. So like I said, we do include a full-scale built-in GIS platform right into the application. You'll see we have about 50 to 60 different layers all built in. And this would be similar to if you were to create your own ARC server, but we make it much easier. You don't have to do any of that manual uploading or downloading. You simply click on a layer and it will automatically display onto your map so that you can actually interact with it. You'll see we do pass through, of course, all of the underlying metadata about any feature. So if you want to view it, you just click and it provides that summary detail. So you'll see here I'm looking at a slope shading layer. But like I said in the top during my slides, what we really focus on is automation. Because with these traditional just standard overlay analysis, it gets really inefficient where you say, okay, I want to look at wetlands, and then you have to turn on a wetlands layer and trim and trace across all 17 of these parcels where there's hazards. And then you have to look at floods. And then if you want to look at slope analysis, you have to count contour lines. That's all really inefficient, and we've automated that entire flow. We just hit select all parcels, and we come to our buildable area analysis feature. And then we just fill in our preferences. So let's say that I wanted to add 75-foot setbacks for this RFP to my property boundary and hazards. I also know I want to be in flat areas. So let's say that I want to make sure that no buildable area exceeds 7%. I just type that in. I want to know where my southern facing slopes are, so I check that. And of course, I want to analyze my floods, wetlands, my forested area, which we define as 50% tree density, but you can of course adjust that metric. I also want to make sure that my depth to bedrock exceeds 7 feet for this RFP. And then also too, I want to make sure that I'm analyzing and removing any critical infrastructure such as buildings, roads, railroads, airport runways. And I also want to do what we call sliver analysis, which is basically identifying pockets of a site that aren't necessarily a hazard, but where you never put an array. Then all you do is you hit run. So while this runs, basically what we've done is we've trained our software to automatically be able to look at every single site. And the first thing it does a 3D slope analysis of every inch of every parcel, and it will find any area that exceeds 7% slope that I typed in. It'll remove that from the buildable area. So I'm going to do your hydro analysis. It'll remove any floods or wetland hazards. It'll remove that from your buildable area. It is then going to look for any forested areas that exceed that 50% tree density. It'll remove that from your buildable area. It is then going to go through and look for anywhere where that depth to bedrock is less than 7 feet that I typed in. It'll remove that from the buildable area. And then it's going to remove the critical infrastructure, buildings, roads, runways, as well as your footprints. And then it will do that sliver analysis I talked about. And then finally, it will apply 75-foot setbacks. So I'm going to collate all of that data into a buildable area calculation, as well as create a constraint map for every site. And that entire process takes about 15 to 45 seconds. So you'll see we're just about done here. I have a couple left, and then we'll be able to sift through to figure out the ones we like the best. I know that I just threw a lot of information at you, and that's a fairly complex feature. So to just show you what we're seeing, as you can now see that we have constraint maps for every site, I'm just going to drill into one to kind of click and show you what we're seeing. If I click this lime green, you'll see for this parcel, this is my buildable area polygon. You'll see I've already automatically calculated that 66.9 acres, which is 42% of the parcel. And you'll notice too, if I click here, that's a freshwater emergent wetland. You'll see that's a 100-year flood zone. You'll see that this is an area where my southern facing slope exceeds 7%. So not only do we mark this, we also actually identify every hazard as well. You can see in the blank space, we've added those setbacks as well. So very quickly, you're able to evaluate all of these sites without that traditional overlay analysis. But from here is, okay, well now we need to actually filter and find the sites that we like the best. For 17, I could probably eyeball this and just go one by one, but this was 100 or 150, which is frankly very common among our user base. We need to sift through this data quickly. So we just come down to our filter section and we say, okay, I only want to see parcels, for example, where my buildable area is, let's say, greater than 125 buildable acres. I also want to make sure it's not patchy buildable area. So I'm also going to say I want to make sure that it's greater than, let's say, 80% buildable. And when I do that, you'll see that I'm quickly left with only 3 parcels that actually meet that criteria. And as I zoom in, you can see that they all have really high percentages of that lime green, and there are almost no hazards on any of these sites, making all 3 very viable to create that kind of about 25 megawatts, because if they have at least 125 acres and you assume about 5 acres per megawatt, we're very quickly have found sites that should be able to support that level of analysis, or excuse me, that amount of energy. We then have a simple rating system where I can just go ahead and I'm going to give each of these a 3-star rating since they seem viable. And that makes it nice too. Once again, that's all automatically saving. So if a team member's logged in, they'd be able to see exactly where I picked up and also to see sites that I liked. From there is, okay, well, for you guys who are utility scale developers, you often know that once you maybe find an anchor parcel, you might want to actually round that territory out with some contiguous property. So in our system, all you have to do is I can also, in addition to my bulk parcel searches, I can simply turn on a parcel layer, and you'll see now we have the property boundaries visualized, and I can simply click a parcel and hit create, and then you're going to see that this is going to be brought into my project, excuse me, down here below. But again, with an ArcGIS or any of those traditional tools, this is now 2 different files, 2 different sites, but you guys are thinking about it as one project. So that's really inefficient for the way I think about it as a developer. So in our system, once again, we automate and make that much easier by selecting both parcels. And I can create what we call a super parcel. I'll just give it a name and I hit run. And what you're going to see is we're now going to turn these 2 contiguous properties into a single consolidated project territory, which as I zoom in, you can see here now. So once again, it's a way that we're not trying to give you just raw data. We're really trying to design the platform to mimic the way you think about this work as a developer. From here then is, let me go ahead and I'm going to refilter on my 3-star parcels, is we now really have these 3 parcels that we really like. But additionally is oftentimes with a purely data-driven analysis, as you know, sometimes your buildable area isn't going to be exactly perfect. So you'll see here, for example, on this site, we kind of have this northeastern section of buildable area, but I'm probably not going to ever put an array back there. So we want to make sure you have the tools to fully update this constraint map. So all I have to do is I come to my drawing tools, and you'll see we can do things like dropping markers, drawing lines, but really the main use case is this drawing polygons. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply trace and remove this whole northeastern section. And when I do that, I can do things with this user polygon, like change the name. So I'll just call it bad area. Also, if you guys have standard design and constraint map preferences, we can of course adjust any styling. So maybe I want to make that polygon red, or maybe I want to set a setback to that. So we can also do things like create automated buffers. Just type in 100 feet. I hit create, and then you'll see we've now added that polygon. But now we need to actually update this buildable area because we have these additional constraints mapped. We make that very easy. We simply click the buildable area as well as this bad area and the buffer. And we use our composite geometry tool to say, I want to start with my buildable area. I want to exclude this buffer and the bad area. And then we just hit build and update. And then what you're going to see is our system will go through. And you can see now this white boundary along the green. We've properly updated this buildable area, and you'll see it's now calculating at 124.5 acres. So it's a very rapid way to go from this purely fully automated data-driven analysis to really giving you the tools to automatically augment these. And from here then, as we've gone into the area of interest, we found some parcels, we were automatically able to calculate buildable area and create constraint maps. We were then able to augment and update that buildable area. So we're now really ready to actually be able to move into those next stage processes. So the first of which is we want to actually contact these owners. So we give you the ability to export Excel files to create mailing reports. You just come to this export button. We select any columns about that data, or you can select them all. Like I said, we have all the information such as site address, mailing address, property ID numbers, buildable area calcs, and all of that other environmental information. And all you have to do is hit export Excel, and you'll see I now have a mailing report ready to go to really start my campaign. The next piece is, well, once you contact these landowners, it's oftentimes they're somewhat guarded and might not have the highest level of credibility. So you want to prove that you've actually done some due diligence and aren't blindly cold calling them. So including a PDF of their site and constraint map really helps with that. In our system, we just hit automated report and run, and our system will scan through and identify every site, create a constraint map image, and put together a nice PDF report. For you ArcGIS users, I think you can agree that PDF reporting is notoriously a pain in most GIS tools. You'll see that we make that very easy by simply doing a one-click run through. And to just show you that PDF, you'll see that we now have a report where we have every site. We'd quickly be able to say Peter Samuelson's site looks great and move into sending this along with our mailer. And then finally, the most important piece as it relates to the demo is we actually want to be able to start moving into our actual array layout phase. So we, of course, allow you to export KMLs in shapefiles in a variety of ways. If I want the entire project that includes grid infrastructure, I can just come up here and hit export KML. You can group by owner or hazard type. I can also export shapefiles as well for you guys who are ArcGIS users. Or if I want to look at a single site, which is kind of what we'll do today for our array layouts, I can just come in here. And for PlantPredict, what we first need is we're going to just need our property boundary. So I'm going to just hide all of my constraints. And I'm going to click on this site and hit export KML. And then we also want to make sure that we have the hazards. So then I'm going to do a second export that is going to export my hazards. And once again, I'm going to click and hit export KML. And just for time's sake, I've done this with all three of these parcels that I had left in my project before and pre-passed them over to David. And this is where I'm going to pause and say that I am now going to pass these files over into PlantPredict, and Dave's going to show you how you can pick up the process here to really move into your generation and array layouts. Thank you all for your time today, and looking forward to talking more in Q&A.
All right, Andy, I think it goes to you now. We're going to do our second poll question before I start my demo. So
thanks, David. So our second poll question is, how do you currently perform solar simulations? We'll give everybody a few moments to click on the appropriate answer on the screen. All right, it looks like most of our answers are in, so I'll go ahead and close this. And here is a summary of our results.
yeah, kind of like we saw with in the world of GIS, the traditional tool, it kind of wins out. PVSYST is definitely the leader. I'm pleased to see PlantPredict at 17%. I feel like we're gaining, Andy, as we've done this poll a few times now. I feel like we're making up some ground, so that's a good thing. Great. All right, let's go into the PlantPredict demo. All right, so you should be seeing my screen now. This is PlantPredict. I'm going to go into full screen mode. All right. This is the project library screen. So I spared you guys all the login process. You can log in by going to www.plantpredict.com. That's where you can register for a free account. It's also where you can log in. When you log in, you're immediately taken to the project library screen. And this is the same user that I've been using for the past few webinars, Joe Solar here. You can see that I've added a new project to my project library. I went from Indio over to Comfrey. So now I've gone from Southern Cal to Minnesota in my analysis. I've already loaded in the Samuelson parcel in here. So I've already got that preloaded, but I still need to load in the Amsden and the, I think it's Daniel or Dennis. Dennis is the other parcel. So I'm going to walk you guys through that process so you can see how easy it is. First off, we're going to click this Create New Prediction button. I'm going to start with the Amsden. We're going to build this on the map. So we're going to follow through with the map builder predictions today. So I'm clicking Build on the Map. Create prediction. All right, this is what we refer to as a TurboTax screen. Not to give TurboTax too much credit here, but it's a step-by-step process through how to build an energy simulation. We try to make it very easy to use, and so you just start at the top and you work your way down. The only steps that are required are these dark blue steps. The other steps that have white buttons, these are optional steps. Time series data, battery storage, transmission, interconnection, those are just optional. So I'm going to just go through the three required steps today. First, select a weather file. All right, I click Add Weather, and it brings up all the weather files that are within a close proximity to my site location. You can see we have some NREL weather files, media norm files. We also support Solar GIS, Solar Anywhere. So those are some of the different weather files that we support within the tool. The media norm, Solar GIS, and Solar Anywhere weather files are paid weather files, but the NREL and NASA weather files are free, so you can just with the click of a button download new NREL files if you need them. I'm going to use this new Ulm weather file, and this is really important. If you're going to be doing an analysis like what we're doing today, you got to make sure you use the same weather file for each of your sites. So it's really important. I've already selected this on the Samuelson site, so I'm going to select this for the Amsden site. All right, now I'm going to save and close out of here now that my weather file has been selected, and move into my power plant design. All right, so here's the power plant design screen. You can see we're focused in on Comfrey. I'm going to switch over by clicking down here to the satellite view. I kind of just like the satellite view. We offer you a terrain view or a satellite view, but in this area, it's pretty flat, so I kind of like the satellite view better. All right, first thing I'm going to do is add in my inverter. I'm going to use this central inverter that I have set up for demonstrations and hit Save Selection. So my inverter is now selected. Next, I'm going to select solar module. I do want to point out that we support all types of solar modules, mono, poly, mono PERC, bifacial, you name it. But for today's demonstration, I'm going to use First Solar Series 6 Plus modules, which is a new solar module that's just been launched by First Solar. The Series 6 Plus solar module is a little larger than traditional Series 6 modules. And so if you have not heard about the First Solar Series 6 solar modules, check out our website. We have some information about that. You get 5 to 10 more watts from the larger form factor. So I'm going to use a 460 Series 6 Plus solar module for this analysis. All right, my goal was to get to somewhere between 25 and 50 megawatts. So I'm going to put in 50 megawatts as my max. My ground coverage ratio, I'm going to use just a rule of thumb starting point of 40%. I'm looking for horizontal tracker. I'm going to design with a horizontal tracker because I'm doing utility scale. And so I want to use horizontal tracker. I'm using tracker tables that are 72 modules wide. By default, we start off at 20 modules. You get a little better economics with larger tracker tables. So I'm going to go with the 72 module wide tracker table there. And one thing that we just rolled out with this most recent sprint is you can now set your modules wide to whatever size you need to be. It used to be that we would require you to have a number that was divisible by the string size. That's no longer a requirement. That was something that caused a little bit of confusion for our user base. We've addressed that with this most recent release that just went out last week. So for those of you that are common users of the tool, you'll notice that is a slight change for you. All right, now that I've got my project definition set up, I'm going to upload my data that Jake sent me. So I'm going to click upload data, then upload KMZ data. You can see we can upload both DEM data or KMZ data. So the DEM data is your digital elevation map data. If you have a LiDAR topo, you can actually upload that and use that for topography analysis. But what I'm going to do is upload my KMZ data. All right. Since we're getting the data from Anderson Optimization, we're getting it from a third-party tool. So you're going to select site boundaries. We're going to leave this append to no just because I don't have anything yet. So we're going to start fresh with just this site boundary. And now I'm going to hit choose file. Here's my Amsden boundary and hit OK and then submit. And you'll see we immediately zoom to that parcel boundary that we got from Anderson Optimization. Next, I'm going to upload my hazards or constraints as we call them. So I do that also with KMZ. Thank you, Jake, for breaking out the boundary and the constraints. But this time I want to append it. And this is really important. I want to leave my boundary where it is, and I just want to append the hazards on top of that. So I say, yes, I want to append it. I'm going to choose my file, choose my hazards, and hit open and submit. All right, there you go. So all the constraints that Anderson Optimization had identified are now brought in and can be used as I do my power plant design. One little trick is you do have to select, for whatever reason, the boundary does come in again with that hazard file as a hazard. I just click that and I hit the little trash can, and now you can see our boundaries are denoted as blue and our constraints are denoted in this orange color. So now it's really clear what's my boundary, what's my constraints. All right. With that being said, I hit update DC capacity and the tool automatically lays out your arrays for you in a way that gets the maximum amount of energy. And you can see down here, we have some similar metrics as what Anderson Optimization has. We've got, first off, how many acres we estimate you would need to get to 50 megawatts, how many acres your boundary is, what your buildable area is, how much of that is covered by arrays, and then what your boundary utilization is. You can see here we were able to get 31 megawatts DC on this site with a 1.2 DC-AC ratio that pencils out around 27.5 megawatts AC. All right, great. So I'll save that. And we will move on to running a simulation. I'm just going to go with default simulation settings and run prediction. Now what the tool does here is it takes everything that I've built in my power plant design, bundles it up into a file, puts it onto a queue in a server. The server has handlers that pick that up, run the full energy prediction, and there you have it in about 15 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, your prediction is done. I'm gonna not go into results analysis yet because I want to do a comparative study. So at this point, I'm going to close out of there and I'm going to go through that similar process for the dentist site. All right, so, but I'm going to move through this one much faster just so that you can get an idea of how fast you can do this. So build it on map, create prediction, start off with my weather file, add in the exact same weather file I used before, save that selection, save and close. Now design my power plant. Once again, add inverter. Notice my search string was stored and brought in, so it makes it really easy. I select my central inverter, my Series 6 Plus module file, put in 50 megawatts, 40% GCR, horizontal tracker, 72 module wide table, and now I'm ready to upload my KMZs. First, I got to upload my site boundary. All right, and then I'm going to upload my constraints. Make sure to append it. This is a really important step. Choose my file. There's my hazards. Voila, you can see how fast that process goes. Okay, now it's time to update my DC capacity. I'm going to run that. You can see here, this site is a little bit larger. So I'm able to get 38 megawatts onto this site, which is quite a bit larger than what we were seeing with the Amsden site. But remember what Jake was talking about. We got this kind of quirky northwest or northeast corner of the site. And he was showing how with Anderson Optimization, you can create a hazard around that. We're going to do the exact same thing in PlantPredict. So over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see our control icons. Now we have quite a few different things. You can put in linear constraints for things like transmission lines, or you can do area constraints, which is what we're going to do here. I'm going to create an area constraint, and we're going to go right out around this, just like Jake did. All right. So now that we've blocked that area off, when I hit update DC capacity, we'll lay out our arrays, and you can see now we've cut that off. So now we're down to 32 megawatts DC, but now we don't have to build around these problems that we have up in the northeast corner. All right, So with that, I'm going to save, close out of that, just use default simulation settings and run. All right, so you can see just a few clicks of the button and you're already to energy prediction solar simulations, which is really awesome. Close that out. Now it's time to do some comparisons. So I've got my 3 sites in here. They're roughly the same size right now. So Samuelson 32.4, Amsden 31, Dennis 32.1. So let's see which of these sites produced the most energy. Compare results. Select the files that I want to compare, and then hit the Ready to Compare button. We lay this out in a very easy to review side-by-side comparison view. So you can see all the information around these predictions laid out side by side. Down here is our DC and AC, so that you can see the difference. All the other things are basically the same because we just use default values. And then when we get down to around the midsection, we get into our plant net energy. So check this out. Like we saw, those sites are basically the same. So you're going to be producing about the same results. However, we're going to produce about the same amount of energy is what I'm saying. However, what we're going to focus on here is our specific yield. So the specific yield, there's a clear winner in this analysis. We're at 1492 for, I believe the first one was Dennis, the second one is Amsden, and the last one is Samuelson. So it looks like the Amsden is the clear winner. I mean, it's a close one, but if I was going to prioritize these sites based on the analysis that we just did, I think I would focus on the Amsden site with Dennis number 2 and then Samuelson with as a close number 3. All right, so before I start making my phone calls, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Amsden site and I'm going to just do a little bit more analysis here just to make sure that I'm not missing something. All right, so here's the Amsden site. I'm going to zoom in on it. All right. Going into our layer view, just like in Anderson Optimization, we can bring in wetland data. So you can see here's our wetlands, and Anderson Optimization mapped those perfectly. So wetlands do not appear to be an issue above and beyond what we already had. Just like with Anderson Optimization, we do have the parcel layer capability, so you can create the super boundary concept as well within PlantPredict. Works just about the same way, which is really awesome. But we're going to focus now on our topographical analysis. Let's look at this site in 3D so that we already did a quick 3D topographical analysis with an Anderson Optimization. We said, let's create hazards around anywhere that the slope was greater than 7%. And that's how we got these little points here. But let's just look at this site in 3 dimensions. With our arrays laid out, I like to turn off the wireframe when I get in here. It makes it a little bit easier to see. So there you can actually see what your power plant looks like in 3 dimensions. You can see our PCSs laid out in here. We had this little, I bet you that may have even been where we had some bedrock or something like that, but we're going to avoid that area. You can see I'm doing a terrain analysis as well. I've got it set to 6%. If I click that and arrow over, we go to 7%. You can see for the most part, this is a nice flat site. If I start running it down to like 3%, you can see more and more red triangles appearing. The slope, though, is not my concern right now. What I'm going to focus on is this post height analysis. Because what can kill you on a site like this that's relatively flat is undulations. So when I hit this post height analysis, you're going to see that we look at where the post is on each of these tracker tables, and then we put red dots if there's a hill and green dots if there's a valley. And what that does is that allows us to see where there might be some hills or valleys where we might have to do some cut fill work. So this is very powerful. You can come back over to this site and do a cut fill analysis. I'm going to click my cut fill analysis and I'm going to just for simplicity's sake, let's just do a big cut fill on this entire site and see how much dirt I would need to move in order to flatten this site out. So you can see I would need to cut 62,000 cubic yards of dirt and fill in 575,000 cubic yards of dirt. Probably not going to do that. However, you can also do some spot cut and fill in order to look at this. But we do all of that for you. You can see very fast, click of a button, you can generate that analysis. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do is, so Jake had talked about when you approach the landowners, you want to show that you've done some due diligence. I mean, we've spent a whole 30 minutes doing this analysis, so you want to show that you've done some due diligence. So you can generate a layout document to go right along with the boundary documents. I click on that, click download PLP 1000. The PLP 1000 is our PDF layout document, proprietary to PlantPredict. And just with the click of a button, you get your layout into a easy to share PDF view. Click on that, there it is. All right, I gotta close that out. The other thing you can do, this is brand new as of last week, you can get a high-level bill of materials. So you can find out how many tracker tables, how many modules, inverters, combiner boxes. We've got the algorithms built out. We've been developing them for several months now to calculate combiner boxes, how many harness pairs you're going to need, what your linear feet of home runs would need to be. And you can, just with the click of a button, take that information into an Excel document that you can then put in things like what your cost per table is, what your module cost is, inverter cost, and come up with a really fast indicative cost estimate for your BOS for your site. So there I click that, it comes down into Excel. Now we tried to use similar formatting to like our 8760 and our project summary report so that the reports all look very similar if you're going to put together any kind of a documentation package. Here it comes in Excel. Moving at the speed of Microsoft. All right, it's opened up. So there it is. Here's my quantities. I could put in my cost over here and sum that very easily. Brand new, planning to build on it. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We want to do a lot more in the form of bill of material, cost analysis, and financial modeling. All right. So from there, I can always go in and do some results analysis in our reports. So here's our summary data showing our plant net energy specific yield. I can go into our charting section and look at this production any day of the year just by scrolling through here. All these things are really powerful. Export all these results, our plant summary PDF, our 8760 Excel, our inputs and assumptions. Build that package with Anderson optimization deliverables. And seriously, you will have a very compelling documentation package to talk to your landowners, your banks, investors, your stakeholders, you name it. You did it all like in 30 minutes, which is the thing that Jake and I are constantly trying to preach here, is the world is moving too fast. This world of solar development is moving too fast for traditional tools. You guys need better tools, and you need automation and workflow automation. And so hopefully through the demonstration that Jake and I just provided, you can see maybe a little glimpse of what the future of solar development is looking like. And so with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Andy, and he will lead our Q&A session.
Thanks, David. That was a great demo. That concludes that portion of our webinar today. And so just going through some of the questions that were submitted so far. First question is, how up to date is the parcel data, and where does the parcel data come from?
Absolutely. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, Jake, we can hear you
Wonderful.
just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy to speak with that. So we work with a third-party parcel data provider called Report All USA. They're the leader in this parcel data space. And so they are constantly updating their parcel data sets at all times. One of the nice things about our platform versus others is we actually have a direct integration with their platform. So anytime someone pulls data into AO, they are pulling the most up-to-date data that report all has. That's advantageous current relative to traditional processes where you would normally have to go to a parcel data provider and normally buy a county or state level data at a one-time purchase, where then that data becomes immediately stale or begins to age. With us, you're always pulling the latest and greatest. With that, I'd have to double check the exact stats. I think it's about 98.6% of US coverage. The only counties we don't have are ones where those counties have decided to not make that data available in any format. So in general, parcel data is one of the big benefits we're able to provide to our users, and it's being updated on a constant basis.
Great.
Yeah, Jake, we use Report All USA as well in PlantPredict. So
wonderful.
Jake's answer ties out exactly to what we do with PlantPredict. I agree, Jake. They are a leader in that data set and very, very good source of information. And so just agree with you on all those points.
Fantastic.
Next question is, what data set does the software use to evaluate bedrock depth? How accurate is that?
Yep, absolutely. So the way that we frame the bedrock depth data is you're still, of course, going to have to do a late stage geotech. But the sources for that the USDA Natural Resources and Conservation Service. They have a bedrock analysis data set that is out there. So the way we frame it, it's directional. It's meant for sort of fast failure analysis, but of course you're still going to have to do your late stage geotech. But the way to frame it is, if you're seeing a hazard on kind of this data-driven approach, you're very likely going to run into it on the late stage as well. So it's more of a fast failure rather than saying, if there's an absence, it's guaranteed to be solid. But if it is showing issues at just a desktop level, you're almost assuredly going to run into issues on a geotech. So it's a way to really upfront some of that, upstream some of that analysis.
Great. Next question is the Anderson optimization tool available for PV projects globally or only in the US?
Yeah, great question. So right now we are only released in the US. As we get into early 2021, we will be releasing in the UK as well as potentially Canada. At this point, it's actually fairly straightforward for us to move into new markets, but we really do that based on customer interest to maintain focus. So if there are markets that are on any of these developers, anyone on this audience's radars, markets of interest, we're definitely happy to have those calls and really understand what it would take to kind of move into those markets. So again, US currently going to be soon rolling out in UK and Canada, but other markets are definitely on the table if there is an industry desire, and happy to have those conversations.
Great, thank you. What are the assumptions in PlantPredict around spacing between roads? How about tracker lengths? Do they include motor gaps between bays, etc.?
Yeah, really good. And I kind of breezed over that. So we do now offer you the ability to adjust your north, south, and east-west roads. So you don't have to guess what the assumption is on that anymore. That was something that we just rolled out, I think, the sprint before this most recent sprint. So I'm sorry for kind of breezing over that. I definitely encourage you to check that out. So on the map builder, at the very bottom of the parameters page, you can specify north, south, and east-west road width. And if you do take one of those to 0, we will combine in the arrays. We refer to that as a corridor style design, which some developers use, where they just have an east-west corridor and they don't actually have the north-south roads. You can do that just by putting 0 in the north-south road space. As far as the question on gaps and motor gaps and stuff like that, right now, you're not getting that, quite frankly. What we're doing is we're just constructing those trackers based upon the module dimensions. So you will be missing those gaps. So you do have to think about that as you're doing your capacity analysis. We have really good relationships with some of the leading tracker providers out there. And one of the things that is, I'm not going to go so far as to say on the roadmap, but one of the areas that we would like to do is partner a little bit closer with some of these tracker providers and offer the ability to model in their gaps and the extra length that's required in order to take into account things like motor blocks and stuff like that, center gaps and stuff like that. So so just keep that in mind when you're doing your modeling. You probably will need to put a little bit of buffer for that, for those motor blocks and gaps as well.
Okay, great. This is a question for Jake. What is AO's data coverage for Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. So frankly, we haven't rolled out there yet, but in general, the markets that we've gotten most requests on are Alberta. So that is the market that we've traditionally really looked at. But in general, the way that we would design the platform is to be able to provide a very similar level of data coverage out there that we would that we do here in the US. So it would be the same types of, your hazard information, grid infrastructure information, and then also looking to acquire the parcel data sets so that you can really, evaluate these sites. So the idea would be to get as full of coverage as possible. Since we haven't rolled out, I don't have an exact specific answer, except outside of Alberta, where, we've built it out to be pretty solid, but it is still in a beta version.
Okay, great. This next question is for David. Does PlantPredict allow use of crystalline silicon modules or just for solar panels?
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit in the demonstration because it's a really common question. So from the very beginning, we built PlantPredict to model all module technologies, and we've held true to that all the way up to today. In fact, there was a study that came out the week of Thanksgiving from the Technical University of Denmark. I'm giving them some credit here. In fact, we're doing a full technical review of that paper internally, and then we're going to make it available actually in PlantPredict because it provides some really interesting results. It was a year-long study that the university did, and what they did, the focus of the study was to see how what they consider to be industry-leading simulation tools, how their simulations compare to real results. So, and they focused on utility scale because they pointed out that a lot of the studies that have been done thus far have been focused on small scale, like residential. They actually had the room where they were able to put in horizontal tracker tables, and they collected data over the course of an entire year, and then they compared that to the simulations that they ran. I'm glad to say that PlantPredict was one of the 8 tools that they studied in there, along with PVSYST, NREL SAM, DNVGL's tool, Solar Farmer. So they picked what are really the industry leaders right now as far as simulation is concerned. And happy to report that PlantPredict, they also modeled monofacial so they could see the backside gain. PlantPredict was right in line with all the other tools. In fact, PlantPredict modeled was a little bit more conservative, as we've tried to be, because we're really concerned with how these simulation tools are modeling the bifacial backside gain, specifically in your winter months. And the study showed that most tools are around 5 to 10% over predicting. PlantPredict came in much less than that. So we were pretty happy with the results from that paper. Once again, I'll include information on how to get to that paper, but it was published by the Technical University of Denmark. Fantastic paper, really good data, yeah, we have customers that model bifacial, mono perk all day, every day. So the tool is designed for that, and it does a really good job with it.
Okay, great. This next question is for Jake. Can users upload their own data into Anderson Optimization?
Yeah, absolutely. So touched on that a little bit earlier in the slide, but that's actually as far as just the raw data that really differentiates us from some of the other kind of GIS tools that you would see in this space. Is most of those are just data tools, so they kind of give you a black box. Whereas for us, we really differentiate on the automation side of it. So we're able to do basically is any data that you guys have created, built, or acquired. We know that most developers have lots of this type of data. We're absolutely able to incorporate that into our platform in addition to all of the data that we have out of the box. And then we basically layer our workflow automation on top of that. So that really does then give you this one-stop single source of truth, one-stop shop to really manage this entire front-end development process and really just keep your team on much more of the same page rather than really managing through this, more siloed nature that you would see in a traditional environment using ArcGIS or these other tools.
Okay, thanks, Jake. And just in the time we have remaining, about 1 minute, David, this last question is for you. Does PlantPredict have plans to integrate storage into its model?
Yeah, in fact, it's already there. So we were one of the first simulation tools out there to integrate storage. So you can model a battery storage system into your power plant. And we have, by default, two very simple dispatch algorithms. One we call LGIA excess, where you just take any clipped energy as a result of an LGIA limitation and put that into the battery for use. We also have energy available as the other one, where basically when the sun comes up, the first thing you do is charge your batteries and save that for some dispatch period, maybe in the evening around that. So those are the two basic dispatch algorithms we support. We also offer the ability to upload a custom dispatch schedule, which is probably the most popular way that people do their storage modeling. Yeah, we offer storage. It's a big growth area for us, as it is for the entire industry. We plan to invest quite a bit in that over the course of this next year as we try to build out the capabilities and make it a more robust storage modeling tool. Very important for the industry and very important for us. So yeah, if you haven't done it, if you haven't used it yet, give it a try, check it out. We'd love to get feedback from our customers.
Well, thanks to our presenters, Jake and David. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks to everybody who submitted questions. If we didn't get a chance to get to your question, please feel free to contact us at the information currently on your screen. So with that, we'll conclude today's webinar. Thanks again to everybody for joining us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Please feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.
Bye now.